I would like to invite our last presenter for today, Mr. Reynaldi Wijaya from Swiss German University, with the paper entitled Knowledge Creation Cycle in Design of Training Program for Car Manufacturing Company. Mr. Lei, you may start your presentation. Mr. Lei, can you?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ivan. So, hello everyone. My name is Reynaldi Wijaya, and today I'm going to present my research in knowledge creation cycle in design of training program for car manufacturing company. So nowadays, companies are expected to be highly adaptable to the changes on the market. This includes customers' demand for a different kind of products, which can change at basically any time. In order to do that, a company has to manage its resources effectively to quickly adapt to the ever-changing requirements of the customers. One of them being the human resource knowledge of the company. On this case, a German automotive manufacturing company operating in Indonesia are planning to introduce a new product into their production line. However, during an audit before the full production of the new vehicle can commence, they find that there are a lot of mistakes during assembly of the new type of vehicle, so it didn't pass the audit. However, although this new vehicle is highly similar to the ones that are currently in production. And from that, we can conclude that the research problem is the company have a problem with knowledge transfer from the management to the human resource of the production line, especially to the operators of the assembly line. The limitations of this research includes the main focus of this project, which are limited to the production or assembly processes of the company. And this research is conducted at the production department of the company. So onto methodology. The method to solve the problem is the AD model, which separates the steps into 5 areas: analyze, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. So first, it starts with problem identification, where through field observations we determine the problem of the company, which is then followed by literature review to look for supporting documents regarding the problem and to find suitable solutions to the problem. And once it is completed, data gathering and analysis is conducted to determine the best way to implement the solution. And then onto the design phase, where the training system for the company is designed, which is done by identifying required competency for each job functions on the assembly line and creating a competency matrix based on the competencies observed. And then onto development phase, the training center layout and facility of the company are improved from previous research conducted by the company. An e-learning application, an pre-existing e-learning application is configured to better suit the company's requirements, and its training materials are improved as well. And then comes the implementation phase, where the training center layout and facility and the e-learning application are implemented for the assembly line, which is then followed by a user acceptance test to determine the result of the implementation. And then comes the evaluation phase, where the test result of the UAT are discussed and conclusion and recommendation can be taken based on the discussion. So as I've said before, skill matrix is used to determine all the relevant skills required on all assembly stations of the company. This data is gathered through field observations, where observations are done when they are assembling a vehicle. So every process of the assembly stations are listed. And then a relevant module is assigned to corresponding assembly processes for the workers to prepare themselves before entering the assembly line. And then onto training program design and development. The development is separated into two areas. The first is physical aspect, and there are theoretical aspects as well. On the physical aspect, the training center layout is improved by adding new equipments where workers can practice their skills on assembling vehicles, taking from balls and other materials as well, and addition of information boards and its materials where workers can see how an assembly operation should be conducted correctly. And then onto theoretical aspect, an e-learning application, which is Moodle, are configured to better conform with the company's requirement. So, which includes plugins and other add-ons for better operation of the e-learning application. And then additional training materials are introduced as well, which includes new courses for other assembly operation and new type of documents such as standard operations procedure (SOP) and single point lesson (SPL). Both of them are utilized to record previous experiences for the new workers to study and did not repeat the same mistakes. And based on that, and to effectively manage the human resource knowledge, we utilize the Seichi model of knowledge where to manage the knowledge of the assembly line. And they have 4 steps in managing the knowledge, which starts with socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. It is a cycle, so once the 4th step is completed, it reverts back into the first step, socialization. On socialization, workers share information between one and another, which are conducted through events such as a training session where workers practice with the training simulator under supervision from experienced instructors. And other type of interaction between workers also can be done through discussion, although both formal and informal. And it is followed then by the externalization phase, where the information from an external source or an expert worker is recorded into a media, which will be used as learning materials for the workers. These learning materials includes course introduction video or presentation, modules, for discussion forum, single point lesson, and standard operation procedure. And then comes the combination phase, where the training materials which has been recorded before are compiled to form a comprehensive training course for an assembly operation. And since this company have multiple assembly operations, multiple training course is devised to fulfill the requirements of the company. And then comes the internalization phase, where trainees will practice their skills in a physical training area. On this phase, when they are working with the training tools, the trainees will externalize or show his or her knowledge of the operations to be observed by instructors and trainers to determine whether he has understood the whole materials of the course or not. And once the implementations are completed, as I said before, a user acceptance test is conducted to determine the effectiveness of the training program. On this case, there are 16 workers of the company that managed to join the user acceptance test, including operators and supervisors of the assembly line. And once they have completed the UAT, they are given questionnaires for them to judge how well is this training program performs. There are a total of 5 aspects: application navigation, multimedia aspect, learning materials, learning activities, and operational aspect. For each aspect, there are several indicators to measure how well the training program excels in that aspect. For each indicator, there are scores where the user can give a score between 1 to 6, the more the better. And once they have given the scores for each aspect, the average of the indicator determines the final score of the aspect. As we can see here, we have an average final score of around 4.7. So it performs quite good, and it's quite acceptable for the workers in the company. And from this result, we can determine that although the model of knowledge is not designed to be implemented with the ADDIE model, it can benefit the company by effectively managing the knowledge, the human resource knowledge of the company. And here we can see that on the model of knowledge, the socialization phase happens when trainees receive an on-job training or a job training seminar of an assembly operation, along with discussions between peers and instructors. When they're doing this kind of activities, their tacit knowledge is expanded through forums and focus group discussion between trainees and course instructors, both offline, face-to-face, and online through the e-learning application. And then onto the externalization phase, knowledge of expert workers of the assembly line are recorded to form a comprehensive report which can be studied by trainees. By doing this, the tacit knowledge of the experienced workers is converted into explicit knowledge, which are numbers and text, by these documents. So everyone can understand it more clearly, and however, they will need to practice it at some other time, or else it will be a waste. And then onto the combination phase, which is conducted through theoretical learning in the classroom and self-learning by the trainees using e-learning, where both of these methods have access to complete explicit knowledge of the assembly line through documents. Combination phase elaborates multiple explicit information into a larger, more comprehensive set of information, which are the training courses. And then on the last is the internalization phase, where trainees apply their skills to a simulator or the practical learning area, which simulates the real working condition of the assembly line. On this phase, the explicit knowledge of the trainee is converted into tacit knowledge through first-hand experience. And after they have completed this phase, the trainees have enough experience and they can share it into less experienced trainees, which the socialization phase takes place and the cycle repeats. In conclusion, the training program design is capable to manage and preserve the knowledge of human resource of the assembly line by transforming the knowledge of the assembly line into multiple models of knowledge in various ways. Instead of solely focus on the learning materials and activities, the e-learning program promotes discussion and hands-on experience on the production line to develop both tacit and explicit knowledge of the workers. Workers have a better understanding of the information by experiencing or applying the information firsthand rather than fully reading or the material. So they need to practice it in order to develop their skills. And lastly, by facilitating workers to discuss an issue, it will help to distribute the information evenly on the workforce. So you can produce in a shorter time a workforce with a uniform set of knowledge. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynaldi, for your presentation. Is there any question from the participant for Mr. Reynaldi's presentation? If you have any question, you may type it in the chat room. Okay, Mr. Reynaldi. Okay, there's a question from Mr. Aditya Tirta Pratama. Thank you for the presentation. How did you verify the result of the acceptance test? How was the effectiveness of your e-learning regarding to the training improvement? Was there any index or quantifiable measure?
The measure to determine the effectiveness, the result of the user acceptance test is the Likert scale, converts which converts the opinion of the workers, the ones who follows the test, into a number, which you can see it here. A value of 1, they are strongly disagree with this statement. 2, they are disagree. 3, slightly disagree. 4, slightly agree, and 6 is strongly agree. And so, yeah, based on, and for indicators, they put the numbers on how well they agree or disagree with the statement. Yeah, and that's how I measure the result of the user acceptance test.
And for the second question, how was the effectiveness of your e-learning regarding to the training improvement?
I haven't had the opportunity to test the effect on the workers' performance. So I plan to measure whether the workers who have attended the training program will perform better where before they are introduced to the training program. But yeah, it is for future research. But based on the result, they can effectively study and develop their skills as based on my user acceptance test.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynaldi, for your answer. I also have a question. How did you define or specify the indicator for the aspect? Did you use any method or maybe specific reference in order to develop the indicator that you for the aspects that you displayed in the results and discussion?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How did you specify the indicators for the aspect from the result and discussion that the table you shown before?
How I define
this
the
one.
indicator?
Yeah. Yes, in here you have the indicator, right? How did you specify the indicator or develop the indicator in here for each aspects?
By developing the indicator, it is done through literature research as well. So I find similar documents which have conducted this kind of research before, and I also connect it to the requirements as by the required by the company itself. So it is based on field observations and through existing documents as well.
Okay, and we have another question from Professor Koichi Murata. Thank you for your presentation. In the field of knowledge management, it has been pointed out that when tacit knowledge is converted into documents, etc., it is difficult to convert everything. Did you devise something? Did you evaluate that point?
Yeah. So during my research, they have difficulty to measure the tacit that they have difficulty in transferring tacit knowledge from an experienced worker into another. So when he left the company, his knowledge is gone as well. And in order to prevent that, I tried to mitigate the problem by introducing a new type of document, which are single point lessons. For example, during when there's an improvement on the assembly line or there is an accident, the workers who solve the problem will photograph the damage or the improvement. They will also determine how the best way to solve the problem, the steps, and how to prevent such problem from not happening again. Yeah, I think that is my attempt to solve the problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lei. And we have another question from Mr. Alif Amir Rahman Setiawan. I am wondering how far documenting SOP can help knowledge transfer among workers. The current standard ISO, such as ISO 9001, has started to not rely solely on SOP documentation. Please, Mr. Ray, for your comment.
Since SOPs are actually considered the basic documents nowadays, the SOPs are not planned for advanced workers. So these are aimed for the equipments on the training facilities, which are simple because we are working with basic tools here. So yeah, I think that's my problem. It is not enough for advanced equipment, but for basic training, it can positively impact the training of the workers by constantly reminding them about simple precautions or simple operations, so they will learn how to keep themselves in check automatically without any help from other people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ray, for your comment. Is there any more question for Mr. Ray's presentation? If not, thank you, Mr. Reynaldi, to become our last presenter for this session.